Very good evening to you and welcome to Breaking Today. My name is Frederick Muitiriri. My sign language interpreter tonight is Teresia Washira, and this week we'll be celebrating the deaf community. Later on in the bulletin, we will be bringing you a story about 30 individuals who are doing great and they are young. We'll be telling you about them, the deaf community, in a short while. But first, the highlights. Chief Justice David Maraga writes to President Kenyatta advising him to dissolve parliament over its inability to pass the two-third gender rule. 3 years after being hit by a police car, a family in Umoja is crying for justice. And tonight, we begin a one-week series celebrating the deaf community in Kenya. And today we focus on a group of about 30 young individuals in Soweto, Kayole. Who are they? All right, welcome to the broadcast, and I start by asking you, should the parliament be dissolved after its inability to pass the third gender rule? That is what Chief Justice David Maraga has suggested earlier today. Talk to me on 111 444 111 111 444 111. Should the parliament be dissolved? All right, we start with the story about the parliament. Chief Justice David Maraga has asked the president to dissolve parliament over its inability to pass a two-thirds gender rule. Maraga has said parliament has failed to enact legislation that is required to implement the two-third gender rule for over 9 years, which amounts to impunity. But in a quick rejoinder, Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, has said the issue of two-third gender rule should be subjected to a referendum. Muturi has shifted the blame to the government, saying it is the one charged with empowering Kenyans to ensure that two-third gender members of all elective and appointive positions are not of the same gender. Also, Muturi has said leaving the issue of gender parity to parliament will be direct expression of the will of the people, and will also mean a higher number of legislatures. But if not enacted, given the current efforts and initiative to amend the constitution that are currently underway, such as the Building Bridges initiative, the issue on two-third gender rule can be subjected to a referendum. The Chief Justice said he was in receipt of 5 petitions asking him to advise to dissolve the parliament. In his advice to the president, however, Maraga has said, and I quote, "There is no doubt that a dissolution of parliament will cause inconvenience and even economic hardships. The fact that Kenya is in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic only increases the potential impact of the decision. Yet, that is a clear result Kenyans desire for parliament's failure to enact legislation they deemed necessary." End of quote. In 2018, parliament failed to pass the law even after mobilization from various women parliamentarians and their male counterparts. Moving on, the Ministry of Health says that the country is not yet safe from COVID-19 and that citizens need to strictly adhere to measures put in place by the government. 2 more people have succumbed to the virus, even as Kenya marks World Alzheimer's Day. 98 new cases have also been recorded in the last 24 hours, as Harriet Chimea is reporting.
Many people with dementia have been hit hard.
CAS Rashid Aman emphasized earlier today during the daily COVID-19 update, where 98 new cases were recorded. Dr. Aman has also urged citizens to adhere to the necessary guidelines to combat COVID-19.
We have not yet defeated COVID-19. Transmission of the virus is still there with us. Our numbers might show that we are, to some extent, the measures we have put in place are yielding some results in suppressing part of this transmission. But that's as good as we continue to maintain those measures that we have put in place that actually do tend to suppress or break the cycle of transmission.
The country recording low number of cases this month in what is largely attributed to the Ministries of Health's low testing capacity due to lack of reagents. The Ministry of Health has assured the curve is being monitored and school might reopen in phases as they continue to analyze the curve. The ministry also received ventilators donated from the Republic of China in an effort to curb spread of COVID-19 in Kenya. Meanwhile, as Rashid confirms 3,000 people are suffering from dementia, the Ministry of Health has acknowledged that Kenya has joined the world in marking World Alzheimer's Day.
Caregivers across the world have hidden the diagnosis of dementia of a family member due to stigma, and over 50% of them say their health has suffered as a result of caring responsibilities, despite optimism about this role. Kenya is honored to be among the 7 countries globally involved in the STRIDE project, the project strengthening response to dementia in developing countries.
The infections totaling to 37,079, Kenya has reported 62 recoveries and 2 fatalities today. Harriet Chimea, Switch TV.
All right, thank you, Harriet. And just to remind you, our question of the day: should the parliament be dissolved over its inability to pass the 2/3 gender rule? Should the parliament be dissolved over its inability to pass the 2/3 gender rule, as requested by CJ David Maraga? Now, moving on, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission has asked Kenyans not to be drawn into political rhetoric that would eventually break the nation's fabric of peace and unity. Speaking in Kibera, NCIC commissioners have asked Kenyans to shun politicians who are spewing hatred among communities even as the country gears towards 2022 general elections. Our reporter Kennedy Kimani reports.
In songs, pomp and color, residents in Kibera converged at the Olympic Primary School to celebrate and strengthen peaceful coexistence among different communities living in Kibera and beyond.
Peace begins from me. If I don't have it, I can't give it outside. So we need to start from ourselves so we are able to give out what we basically have. And I want to thank young people. If you decide, tukiamua ya kwamba sisi tutasambaza amani, hata wakikuja na nini, hata hiyo ingine wanazungumzia saa hii, tukiamua sisi yetu ni amani, watakaa kando.
With hate speech among politicians often being used to spread suspicion, fear and hatred among electorates, the NCIC Commissioner Wambui Nyutu has urged Kenyans to resist any attempts by leaders to incite them to violence.
Just to warn the politicians and to tell them, this is our country. We have no other country to run to. If you are a leader, you cannot be a leader who leads people to violence. You cannot be a leader who incites communities against other communities. And every Kenyan has a right to support whomever they wish to support. But that difference in the support of different individuals should not be what divides us.
Laini Saba, member of County Assembly Cecilia Ayot, reiterated that peace is the magic bullet and Kenyans should sow seeds of peace.
Sometimes we do good acts of love and peace and we think that they're very little, like a drop in the ocean. But the ocean will be less without our drops. So let us continue doing our small acts of kindness and peace, and together we'll make a great society.
There can be no sustainable development without peace, and no peace without sustainable development. As Kenya is nearly heading to the 2022 election campaign season, the NCIC has urged politicians to exercise restraint and avoid the use of unfavorable language, which can easily stir up conflicts. Kennedy Kimani, Switch TV, in Kibera, Nairobi County.
Thank you, Kennedy. 5 senior Kenya Bureau of Standards (KEBS) officials from Mombasa and Nairobi have been charged with fraud worth over 26 million shillings. The accused, Geoffrey Ngari Wandeto from KEBS regional accountant Pauline Wamalwa Nafula, regional assistant accountant Martin Muswanya Nyakiamo, regional manager Agustin Washira Maganjo, quality assurance manager, and Rose Wangoi Gasheru, charged with stealing over 26 million shillings. And tea farmers in Mount Kenya region want Kenya Tea Development Agency to withdraw a case it had filed against implementation of new tea regulations within 7 days. The farmers claim that the case was filed in bad faith, since the intention of the government is to ensure that farmers make profits from their sweat, and the failure to withdraw the case will force them to hold an annual general meeting at factory level and withdraw their management contract with the agency. The agency has moved to court and obtained an injunction against implementation of the rules, arguing that they were not subjected to public participation. The case is slated for mention on Tuesday in High Court, where the court will determine a hearing date.
our farmers are ready to go and convene a special annual general meeting at the headquarters and do resolutions and resolve even to snatch the agency from KTDA. It is not by law, it is not mandatory that our tea can only be sold by KTDA. We can ratify and even give another agent that role because they are basically our contract with KTDA, they are just our marketing agent.
All right, I'm receiving some of the text from 111, 444, 111. If you know you cannot do the job, get out. It's that simple. The Chief Justice, his wife, Jane from Timau. Now, another story. A family in Umoja is crying for justice after years of agony. Maureen Melissa, a mother of one, narrates how her son, who was then 5 years, was hit by a police car 3 years ago in 2015, which left him with a spinal cord injury and a limb fracture. Andrew Keru paid them a visit, and here is their story.
Maureen Melissa, a mother of one, recalls the day when her only begotten son was involved in a road accident, a situation which completely changed her family's destiny. They were left frustrated and broke.
Muda mchache akanipigia simu ati mtoto amegongwa na gari. Alichukuliwa akapelekwa hospitalini hapa karibu, baadaye tukapewa transfer kwenda Kenyatta. Mtoto alikaa kwa ward around 2 months. Alikuwa amevunjika mguu wa left. Then kukaa kwa ward kitu like 2 weeks ndio mtoto akajulikana alipata spinal cord injury.
It was in October 2015, Ryan, his father, took their 3-year-old son for a walk after school as usual to have a father-son moment, hoping to return home safely. From the limb fracture he had sustained, weeks later, the doctors in the hospital advised that Ryan, at his tender age, will have to undergo physiotherapy sessions. Ryan can no longer walk, sit, or do anything on his own.
Now it's like 5 years down the line. Mtoto hajawahi pata nafuu, no change, but hiyo mazoezi amekuwa akifanya. Yeah.
Melissa is worried and her only son's health that has continued to deteriorate.
Nililia sana, ilikuwa uchungu kwa sababu huyu ndio mtoto wangu peke yake. Huyu ndio mtoto na nilikuwa naye wa kwanza. Na alikuwa mdogo sana, alikuwa miaka 3 akipata ajali. Sasa yako miaka 8 na amekuwa akiishi hivi. Na hii vile aliumia amekuwa akiishi tu hivyo.
Ryan is now 8 years and in grade 2 in a special school. Even after reporting the matter to the police, 5 years later, her struggle to find justice for her own son remains futile. To add salt to the injury, Ryan's father later distanced himself from the family, leaving Melissa to struggle on her own.
But the father, since that time, hajawahi tupea any support. He opted to distance himself.
Even after the kid's condition, hajawahi.
No. Actually, mtoto wangu, the last time aliona babake ni 2016. He has never seen him again. Yes.
Nimekuwa tu nikimuona yeye na mdui wake all through.
Life is a journey. No one knows what lies ahead. Most of times we expect things to be okay, but we cannot really determine the happenings. When Ryan was born, the parents were jubilant to raise him to maturity, but unfortunately an accident occurred which rendered him paralyzed, a situation that has left a mark in Ryan's mind and his mom. Andrew Keru, Switch TV, at Umoja.
Thank you, Andrew. And with that story, we take a quick short break. But before we do that, we are preparing a good story about the deaf community that is coming up in a short while. But the question of the day, should the parliament be dissolved over its inability to pass the 2/3 gender rule? 111 444 111. That is my SMS line. Also, we are live on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. We'll be back in a short while. All right, and welcome back to Breaking Today. Some of your SMSs that are coming through our Facebook channel, on Twitter, and on YouTube, and even on 111 444 111. Iman James, good evening. I'm following Breaking Today news from Mombasa. I want to pass my greetings to Milka Wanjiru. Okay. Anita Hassan, following from Kiambu County. Baby Benta, you're saying my favorite channel, tune in from Eldoret. Following from Kisumu, Wiki Blaze. All right, some of the SMSs that are coming in. And now to the big story of the day. International Week of Deaf during the last week of September draws attention to the accomplishment of people who are deaf and also promotes their rights. The day also commemorates the first World Congress of the World Federation of the Deaf in Rome in 1958. The World Health Organization reports around 466 million people worldwide to having disabling hearing loss, including 34 million children, and that 60% of childhood hearing loss is due to preventable causes. Our reporter Amina Hussein now reports on the challenges and achievements of the deaf community in Kenya through their own lens.
Recognizing that deaf people throughout the world face barriers to full accessibility, equal human rights, and participation in policy-making decisions that affect them, the World Federation of Deaf came to birth in Rome, Italy on 23rd September 1951, and this day has since gained momentum and is now celebrated annually.
The classroom, that is Janet from
Sign language interpretation on television news and other programming is now a norm in Kenya.
Sign language interpreter.
Reaffirming deaf people's human rights, as outlined in this year's theme, has not been made possible due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Those who use online platforms have had to adapt a new normal while teaching. The surgical masks being used to curb the spread of coronavirus has also been a major challenge for the deaf community.
We've had some survey through WhatsApp. We've had some survey online with the deaf youth. So far we've gone on well. So the challenge has been the mask, because these masks are blocking people from lip reading to see the facial expression, the lip reading and all that. But we are trying to see on how we can work with the local partners to come up with a simple, visible mask. We had one from another organization, but it was not the best quality. So far we are trying.
I am in Malisho Secondary School, based in Kayole. Believe me you, these young fellas are deaf, but they're about to make a soap using industrial chemicals and materials because they venture in creative business skills.
Under the Uwezo Fund self-help group, these individuals engage in creative business. They meet every Friday either to make beads, akala shoes, or engage in table banking. Brian Auma is a deaf artist, but he can speak and sing.
Kila siku kwao akihangaika, mahirabuka, lakini wewe ulinipenda. My number one irabuka, lakini wewe ulinipenda. Mahirabuka, rabuka, herabuka, rabuka pokea shukurani.
Most of them are generally happy, charming and social. Everyone's journey is different and unique. Some were born not hearing, while others turned deaf due to sickness. Meet Zablon, a sophisticated accountant, art light for the World Organization.
The first time I joined the organization, I was the only deaf person. When I wanted to communicate, we used to use a book to write. You can imagine a book full of writings. But right now, the staff have started learning sign language. And I believe as we move forward, we will have more members know more about sign language.
At a younger age, Zablon felt left out since sign language was not familiar to everyone. he enjoyed school more because he could chat with his mates.
I had a very big challenge when growing up. I was deaf. I have an elder sister who is also deaf. When I wanted to jump into a conversation, they will tell me, "Wait, we are going to talk to you later." I only used to talk to my sister. When schools opened, I used to be very happy. Why? Because I'm going to talk to my deaf friends and interact with them.
They are forced to correlate and adjust to what is now considered normal.
Organizations can go to different lengths to be inclusive. I'm not saying that you need to learn sign language to be able to hire a deaf person in your organization, but you need to be able to give them that opportunity in the same angle as someone else who does not have that sort of a disability.
The Constitution of Kenya holds specific significance for persons living with disabilities who had over the years remained unheard and unseen. Article Chapter 10, Verse 2 of the Constitution designates human dignity, equity and social justice, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, non-discrimination and protection of marginalized as national values and principles of governance.
How many services are we not able to access? Where does the problem start? Is it the government or the people themselves?
The Kenyan Sign Language Bill 2019, a bill for an act of parliament, gives an effect to Article 7.3 of the Constitution, provides that the state shall promote the development and use of indigenous languages, Kenya Sign Language, Braille and other communication formats and technologies accessible to persons with disabilities. Similarly, Article 5.4 provides that a person with any disability is entitled to use sign language, Braille, or other appropriate means of communication. Ashura is a human rights advocate who strongly believes that disability is not inability.
For me, I will tell you, it's the society. Like you'd prefer to learn French, German, Spanish, and any other spoken language, forgetting that there is also sign language. We have very few people who have been able to learn sign language. So it has really made us lag behind. So if we want to achieve the Vision 2030, we cannot achieve if we are left behind.
According to the World Health Organization, 1.1 billion young people aged between 12 to 35 years are at risk of hearing loss due to exposure to noise in recreational settings. Approximately 1/3 of people over 65 years of age are affected by hearing loss. The prevalence in this age group is greatest in South Asia, Asia Pacific, and Sub-Saharan Africa. Unaddressed hearing loss poses an annual global cost of $750 billion. Interventions to prevent, identify and address hearing loss are cost-effective and can bring great benefit to individuals.
Sign language for all. They are part of our lives and they should be part of our future. Amina Hussein, Switch TV.